So I ran on a similar promise to take on anyone and stop at nothing to lower cost and build opportunity for everyone. This will be my last speech in this chamber. I intend to submit my resignation next week and turn to protecting all of New Jersey. So my parting message to Jersey is thank you. To my staff, thank you for your dedication to serving the 11th District of New Jersey. To my colleagues, do not let this body become a ceremonial red stamp from an administration that takes food away from children and rips away health care.
30 seconds.
Gentlelady's given another 30 seconds.
That rips health care away from people and takes food away from children. To the country, stand strong. As we say in the Navy, don't give up the ship. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota reserves.
Yes.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magazzino.
Gentleman from Rhode Island is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, House Republicans are back from their 54-day taxpayer-funded vacation. But don't get me wrong, they do know how to work hard. When billionaires wanted tax breaks, they moved mountains to make it happen. When Argentina needed a $40 billion bailout to help Trump's buddy, they moved quickly to make it happen at the White House. But when working people need help, when millions of Americans are seeing their health insurance costs double and triple, and Americans all across this country are feeling like they're going to have to go without health insurance for the first time in their lives because they can't afford it anymore and have to make that terrible decision about which of their family members they're going to cut off of their insurance, House Republicans are nowhere to be found. When Donald Trump's stupid tariffs are raising the price of groceries, the cost of coffee is up 40% over the last year, House Republicans are silent. When working people need help, they are absent. Shameful. So they will work when billionaires need tax cuts, when Argentina needs a bailout, but when working people need relief, they go on a taxpayer-funded vacation. Shameful, Mr. Speaker. Vote no on this budget. Do not cut the health care of the American people, and I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
The reason we know this is a Democratic shutdown is because of how angry they are that we're about to reopen the government, period. That's all you need to know. In 2023, Jerry Nadler said shutdown is really an extremist policy designed to appeal to an extremist base and hold the whole country hostage. That is exactly what the Democrats have done over the last 43 days. They have held the American people hostage, trying to extract insane things like free health care for illegal immigrants. If they were serious about tackling the health care affordability crisis in this country, then they would address the fundamental problem with Obamacare. Since Obamacare took effect, health care premiums have risen by 96%. And on the open market by 114%. When I asked Leader Jeffries to sign on to the 1 year extension of the premium tax credit, he refused. He stuttered, he stammered, he couldn't answer a single question. Because this shutdown was never about health care. It was always about appeasing a far-left radical base. Chuck Schumer said, every day gets better for us. Catherine Clark said, of course people will suffer. We want to use this as leverage. It is an embarrassment to this country. You should all be ashamed of yourselves for inflicting this pain on the American people, taking away food stamps from 42 million Americans, defunding WIC, not paying our troops, our federal employees, our air traffic controllers. It's a disgrace, and you should all hang your heads in shame. Vote yes to pass the bill and reopen the government.
All right. Let me remind my colleagues. I fully recognize that there's a lot of pent-up anxiety and emotions have been elevated somewhat, but please, in the interest of the decorum of this House, to direct your comments to the chair and do not engage in personalities toward the Senate, toward the President, and others. Gentleman from Massachusetts with 14 and 1/2 minutes remaining.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, let me just say the gentleman from New York sounds as extreme as his voting record. And I'd like to say to the gentleman who just spoke, by supporting this bill, he's betraying 7,000 constituents in his district who rely on the ACA to afford their health care. Boy, I'm glad he's not my representative. At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, as the representative of Western New York, where so many people in my community, like others across the country, are already struggling to afford health care, I urge my colleagues to reject this disgraceful bill. As an occupational therapist, I know exactly who these cuts will hurt. I've heard from so many who are desperate for a lifeline, like Iris, a mom in Buffalo who's worried about how she'll keep her kids' health insurance. Or Andy, a nursing home resident in Tonawanda who relies on Medicaid to get the services he needs. Or the kids at Bourne Hava, a special needs school where I provided therapy, who depend on early intervention services. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans began their assault on the people of our country in the big ugly bill. This bill further devastates health care and leaves millions of Americans to pray they don't get sick. Shame on anyone who goes along with it. This country deserves better. I'll be voting no, and I urge all of my colleagues to do the same. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Reserve.
Reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, some big news and breaking news in the last hour. I'm proud to say that our newest colleague, Representative Adelita Grijalva, just became the 218th signature on the Massey-Kanner discharge petition to compel the release of the Epstein files. And to all my Republican colleagues who refuse to sign on, time is up. You need to figure out where you stand on this because you're about to go on record. Is your loyalty to Trump more important than going after pedophiles? Because make no mistake, these files will come out. It is no longer a question of if, only when, and whether the White House chooses to stand with the survivors or throw them under the bus. And at this time, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Dexter.
Gentlelady from Oregon is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong opposition to this rule and the underlying bill. As a physician who spent 20 years saving lives, I did not come to Congress to let health care be decimated by Congress. I came to fight for my constituents who deserve to be able to see a doctor they trust, afford their medication, and keep their families healthy. If House Republicans let the ACA tax credits expire, they are complicit in forcing Oregonians to make impossible choices, like whether to keep their insurance or put food on the table. As a physician, I know what comes next. People go without. They go uninsured, they delay care, and they skip refills. They get sicker, and sometimes they end up in medical debt that is devastating. The cost of living is already too damn high. Republicans are committed to cutting your care. They patently rejected amendments to protect Americans, ignoring millions of American families who are desperate for relief. I will be an absolute no on the rule and the underlying bill, and I refuse to give up on ensuring affordable health care for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to say just really quickly, the ranking member mentioned the discharge petition, and he's very proud that it has 218 signatures, but not that long ago, today, we had a UC that would have moved that along, would have moved that resolution along over to the Senate, and I believe the Democrats objected to it. So it seems more like a political stunt than it does that they actually wanted to have that resolution moved along, because if they had not objected, it would have gone on its way and they would have accomplished what they wanted to do. So I don't see their real desire to have the resolution passed. I see it more of, like I said, a political stunt. And it certainly is actually a moot point, given that oversight is already releasing many of those files. As a matter of fact, I believe they've done tens of thousands of them, but I believe this morning they did another 20,000 files. So they are being released, and this all seems for naught. But with that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, Jimmy Fallon offered Democrats this pro tip. If you're going to call it the Republican shutdown, you're not supposed to get mad that it's ending. Anyone who remembers their schoolhouse rock knows that once the House originates an appropriation, the Senate must either amend it or pass it. Now, the House did its job on September the 19th with a simple appropriation that made no policy changes. It merely kept the government operating at current levels while we finished debating priorities. Democrats deliberately blocked the Senate from acting, demanding $1.5 trillion of new spending as a ransom. Finally, thank God, 8 of them put country ahead of party and voted to end this madness. Now, hearing the bitter recriminations from our leftist colleagues, it seems unlikely we'll see much bipartisanship today. But with or without them, we will reopen the government tonight and get back to addressing the challenges that confront our country. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts with 11 minutes remaining on his side, 9 minutes on the majority side.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the gentlelady brought up the UC request, but I'm glad she did, because I want the record to be clear. I didn't hear any objection on the floor. The Republican chair basically ruled it as an improper UC request. And so that is why it didn't move forward. And but I do know this, because I'm on the Rules Committee, and I do know the gentlelady time and time again voted against releasing the Epstein files. And I know my Republican friends are hoping that they don't have to go on record because they don't want to get Trump upset at them. But the bottom line is every single Republican will go on record, and you will have to make clear whether you're on the side of a pedophile or whether you're on the side of the victims.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is reminded to direct his comments to the chair, please.
Thank you,
You may
Mr.
continue.
You now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Jayapal.
Gentlelady from Washington is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose this bill that allows health insurance premiums for 22 million American families to skyrocket and raises health care costs for everyone. Trump and his Republican cult of followers in Congress have unleashed shameful crisis of cruelty and corruption on the American people. First, they slashed Medicaid by $1 trillion, kicked 15 million Americans off of health care, set up the playboard for rural hospitals to shutter, all so that you could give $7 trillion in permanent tax breaks to their billionaire buddies. Then they refused to negotiate with Democrats to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits so that 22 million Americans wouldn't have to choose between health care and rent. And when we refused to go along with that, they caused this 45-day Republican shutdown, illegally refused to pay SNAP benefits for the hungry, and illegally canceled flights, throwing the country into chaos. Trump and Republicans want to make you poorer and sicker. While Trump builds his gilded ballrooms, protects pedophiles, pardons those who buy his meme coins, and lets Americans starve. Shame on you. I'm a hell no on this bill.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Tennessee.
Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to oppose the Senate's provision that allows senators to make financial gain off illegal government surveillance. 3 things can be true at once, Mr. Speaker. The first truth is this: the shutdown has to end. The American people and countless Tennesseans I represent are suffering and experiencing real pain. This record-breaking Schumer Democratic shutdown was completely avoidable, and it was completely carried out for political purposes. The second truth is that the last administration, led by Joe Biden and his auto pen, unfairly surveilled conservatives and conservative members of Congress. That included sitting United States senators. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the third thing I would note is that the American taxpayer has suffered enough because of the last administration. No one in this body should support allowing senators to sue and collect from taxpayers because the FBI went rogue under President Biden. But don't get me wrong, the overreach is more than troubling. It's unfathomable that the Department of Justice was weaponized in this way. I fully support holding those radical agents accountable and the ongoing investigations into their misdeeds. Yet no elected official should profit from the political calculation of left-wing bureaucrats and judges. Mr. Speaker, the folks I represent are still reeling from historic Bidenflation, the effects of the border crisis, and the regulatory agenda of the last administration. It is shameful to ask them to shoulder the burden of paying U.S. senators $500,000 or more for those misdeeds. With that, I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
And still I rise, Mr. Speaker. I rise to call to my colleagues' attention that they are no longer claiming that this is a clean CR. The truth is that it is a dirty, filthy, stealthy CR that has been contaminated with millions of dollars for people who have not earned it, but rather who want to take it from the taxpayers of this country because they have concluded somehow that they have been harmed when no harm has been proven or brought to our attention. I believe that health care for all is important because we in the Congress have the best health care in the world. Yet people with the best health care in the world do not see fit for persons who need it, who are among the least, the last, and the lost, to acquire health care, something that they have. Health care is becoming wealth care for too many people in this country. We need to extend the subsidies. We need to make sure that everybody who can get to a doctor gets care. This is not a poor country. I refuse to take a poison pill and have you tell me that I'll regurgitate it next week. The poison pill.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from Minnesota reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I inquire how many more speakers the gentlelady has, because she doesn't seem to have very many.
I believe we have one more, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. All right. We have several. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New York, Mr. Ocasio-Cortez.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
It is great. It is great that Democrats have a line of people who are willing to fight for working class Americans from coast to coast in this country, because God forbid that we have a member of the Republican caucus who stands up and actually wants to extend the Affordable Care Act so that people with cancer, insulin, and issues across all sorts of healthcare issues across this country have their health insurance protected and extended throughout 2026. It is unconscionable that what we are debating right now is legislation that will give 8 members of the United States Senate over $1 million apiece. And we are robbing people of their food assistance and of their health care to pay for it. How is this even on the floor? How can we, as members of Congress, Republican or Democrat, vote to enrich ourselves by stealing from the American people? That is what this legislation does. In fact, Senator Graham just went before the press earlier today saying he was going to seek well over $1 million from the American people from this. We cannot support it, and we cannot stand for it. Thank you.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just wanted to point out to some of my colleagues that, you know, the Democrat government shutdown stopped the SNAP benefit. So if they were very concerned about those, about making sure that people had their nutritional assistance, they wouldn't have shut down the government, because that is what caused it. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was great to hear from the new leader of the Democrat Party, Mrs. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Unfortunately, we didn't also get to hear from their other leader, Mr. Zoran Mamdani. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to be proud this evening to vote to reopen the federal government.
House will be in order.
Mr. Speaker, for 40 days, the Democrats shut our government down to pursue unrealistic policy proposals that they know the American people do not want. Mr. Speaker, the American people do not want health care for illegal aliens. They do not want our tax dollars funding left-wing media outlets, and they do not want to drive up our debt $1.5 trillion as part of a short-term continuing resolution. Mr. Speaker, the last 40 days have been nothing but pure political nihilism, and I'm glad that this nightmare is over so that we can get back to work on behalf of the American people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Reserve.
Reserves. Who seeks time?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me first of all just say to the gentlelady, this is Republican shutdown. It didn't need to happen. All you need to do is extend the ACA tax credit so that people wouldn't get screwed on their health insurance bills. But I also point out to her that the President of the United States illegally withheld SNAP benefits. And two federal judges, basically 2 court orders, backed us up on that. And he's the first president ever in history to actually shut off food benefits to people during a shutdown. Shame on him. I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our country is at a moral crossroads. Just today, it comes out that billionaires are worth $8 trillion, more than 50% of Americans combined. And what does the president do? He decides he doesn't have the money for the American people. He's going to starve the American people to give $40 billion to the corrupt libertarian leader in Argentina. $9 billion would have fed the American people. How is that America first? And then he says, I don't care about the cab driver who is paying $2,600 now per month in health insurance as opposed to $44, because I don't want to save the 20 million Americans who are going to face high premium increases. How is that America first? We need national health insurance in this country. We need to tax billionaires in this country. We need to fund SNAP in this country, and we need to stop funding Argentina and corrupt foreign leaders.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just wanted to address for just a second the health care issue that the Democrats continue to bring up and act like this had anything to do with everyone in the country's premiums, because we are talking about the COVID era Affordable Care Act's COVID era subsidies. So this is not what is affecting other people's premiums, other than those folks that qualify for those COVID era premium subsidies. That's it. They continue to make it sound like this is responsible for every kind of increase that people are seeing. And so the Affordable Care Act's original subsidies will remain in place. So that's the original subsidies, ensuring that millions still qualify for the income-based tax credits and capping out-of-pocket costs relative to income. It's the COVID era. I can't say that enough. It is the COVID era subsidies that are in question here. Premium increases are actually driven by multiple factors, including medical inflation, provider consolidation, and rising drug costs. But to actually reduce premiums, that's what we must address. And we must have comprehensive discussions about that, not just political theater and sound bites. We have to actually sit down and have those discussions, and that's what getting the government back open will do. I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves her time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, the ACA polls at 65%. Donald Trump is at 37%. I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Presley.
Gentlelady from Massachusetts is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on behalf of every elder who can't afford their prescription, every parent who went to work hungry so their child could eat. In the United States of America, there is no lack of resource, only a deficit of empathy, political will, and courage. At its best, government is a backstop, a compassionate steward of the public good. At its best, government catches people when they stumble in a moment of hardship. At its best, government does right by the people, all the people. Struggle does not discriminate, Mr. Speaker. Hardship is not a character flaw. It has zero to do with work ethic. Every single person is one diagnosis, one layoff away from hardship. Life can change at an instant. What we are bearing witness to is not only a lack of political courage, but it is a fundamental betrayal of the people. Incompetence and indifference to the suffering of our constituents and our neighbors. The shame and the sham of it all. Any member of Congress who would vote to deny a child a meal or medication, it is child abuse and neglect. I ought to file a 51A on you for that. Every person in this chamber, every person in our country has lost a loved one to cancer, and yet you would vote to deny people life-saving cancer treatment and research. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, and with the majority, you have chosen to enact harm to make people hungrier, poorer, sicker, and less safe. The shame and the shame of it all. You, the people, deserve better. We, the people, deserve better, and I won't stop fighting until you get it.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
I'm prepared to close.
Gentlelady's prepared to close. She has 4 minutes remaining. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm not. So I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Pocan.
Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, the federal government will officially reopen with the House vote today. But here's what won't happen. We won't protect the 22 million people paying more for the Affordable Care Act, or the 15 million people losing their health care outright due to Republican actions in the big ugly law. Nor will we stop the health care rate increases for everyone in this country. And we won't be restoring food assistance today for millions of Americans who benefit from SNAP because House Republicans voted to cut the #1 program that keeps kids and seniors out of poverty by over $180 billion. Nor will we be able to roll back the tax cuts for billionaires and your GOP donors that you funded by gutting those health care and food programs. But I sure hope you're tanned and rested after your 8-week paid vacation, because you're going to need it. Democrats are going to continue fighting every single day for people's health care and food benefits, and we're going to be on you day after day until we get it done. Vote no. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
I'm prepared to close, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I'm not quite yet, so I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Olszewski.
Gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, this funding deal is why Americans have lost faith in Congress. It does absolutely nothing to address the crushing cost of health care in what amounts to a massive tax hike on working families. It does absolutely nothing to stop President Trump from canceling the very funding we would provide, something he's already done again and again. But here's what it does. It allows senators to write themselves, and only themselves, million-dollar checks because their phone records were legally subpoenaed, checks paid for by American taxpayers. It's corruption at a whole new level. With bribery and insider trading, someone breaks the law. Here, Congress is writing a law that protects and funds corruption. It's brazen and disgusting in an effort to legalize corruption. And anyone who votes for this CR is complicit in that corruption. If government still belongs to the people and not the powerful, we must reject this self-serving scam. I yield.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota still prepared to close. Gentleman from Massachusetts with 2.5 minutes remaining.
So I'll close, Mr. Speaker, for our side. Mr. Speaker, I don't have enough time to rebut all the absurd claims made by the other side. Suddenly, they all have an opinion on health care. They had a decade to come up with a plan, and they came up with nothing. But I'm glad they finally acknowledged that this is a dirty Sierra that shovels millions of dollars into the pockets of Republican politicians. They hate this bill so much that they're all going to vote for it. They say that we shut the government down. Really? The last time I checked, Republicans are in charge around here. We heard for months about their mandate. They control the House, the Senate, and the White House. They have a duty to keep the government open, and they failed. They did not have the votes. They refused to negotiate with us because we wanted to help regular people instead of billionaires. And now they want to blame us for the consequences of their own actions? What the hell is wrong with them? Give me a frigging break. America is the richest country in the history of the world. We are blessed with an abundance of so much. There should not be an affordability crisis. Every single person in this country should be able to have a good job, a living wage, affordable food and health care, and have a shot at a better future. That's what I'm fighting for. That's what we're fighting for. That's how I want to make America great. That's the Democratic vision for what this country could be. And from a moral perspective, from a set of values, we believe it is immoral to have a system that gives so much to just a few billionaires while depriving so many of the basic things they need to live a good life. And it is clear to me after this debate that Republicans do not share those same values. And I'm going to fight like hell. We are going to fight like hell because I believe in America. We believe in America, and we believe that the hopes and the dreams of the American people will prevail. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota with 4 minutes remaining to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we wrap up this debate, I want to take a moment to cut through the noise from our colleagues, from our colleagues on the left. Instead of focusing on the legislation before us, they're resorting to fear tactics and tossing out false claims about what this shutdown is really about. The CR would have kept the government open to continue and finish the appropriations process. And yet, the Democrats refused and instead chose to shut down the government. And you know, my colleague mentions values. Democrats claim that our values are different, and Democrat Wick Clark said, of course there will be families that are going to suffer, but it is one of the few leverage times we have. So if that's the values they're talking about, I don't share those values. I won't make the American people suffer, whether it be their SNAP payments, whether it be keeping air traffic controllers paid, whether it's paying our troops. Making the American people suffer is not the values that I share. And for the record, Republicans did not cause this shutdown, and we've not been on vacation. I've been splitting my time between D.C. and the district, as I mentioned before, meeting with constituents in both, meeting with federal agencies, hosting a teletown hall, and I know how hard my Republican colleagues have been working for their constituents and the American people. It was the Democrats who shut down the government when they refused to support a clean CR that would have kept the lights on and protected critical services. And now it's the Democrats who continue to shift the blame. Now, getting back to the issue at hand, let's talk about what this bill actually does. H.R. 5371 restores the funding for SNAP and WIC. It reimburses the contingency reserves that to make sure that programs remain stable and reliable. Actually, President Trump moved $300 million of tariff revenue to fund WIC during the shutdown. Republicans are the ones protecting food security and not playing games with it. This bill also delivers for our farmers and ranchers and for rural development and invests in the community that feed this country and keep the economy strong. It supports our troops and federal workers. It ensures our service members and their families have the support they need, and it honors the promises we have made to those who have served. And yes, it reopens the government, restores stability, and resumes regular order. So let's be honest about what a yes vote means. A yes vote is a vote for veterans care. A yes vote is a vote for SNAP and WIC. A yes vote is a vote for $700,000 a fire engine in Ranking Member McGovern's district, and $1 million for the Navajo Nation Community Development Division in Representative Ledger Fernandez's district. A yes vote is for farmers. A yes vote is for our troops, and for federal workers. And yes, it is for reopening the government. And a no vote, well, that's a vote against all of that, including the development of a wastewater treatment facility in Mr. Negus's district, and $1.5 million in watershed conservation in Representative Clark's district. It's a vote against federal workers. It's a vote against health care. It's a vote against feeding hungry children. And it's a vote against common sense. Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question.
Question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker,
gentleman from Massachusetts.
Hearing aid, I think. I asked for the yeas and nays.
Yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of adoption of the resolution. This is a 15-minute vote. This bill, with the yeas are 216, the nays are 213. The previous question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. Sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. this vote, the yeas are 213, the nays are 209. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The House would come to order. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Washington seek recognition? The House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Washington seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I seek recognition to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. Whereas on October 27, 2025, Representative Chuy Garcia filed nominating petitions to be on the Democratic primary ballot in March 2026. Whereas on November 5th, 2025, on the last day of filing, Representative Garcia's Chief of Staff, Patty Garcia, submitted her own paperwork to enter the Democratic primary. Whereas on November 6th, after the filing deadline, Representative Garcia confirmed that he would not be seeking another term in 2026 and would be withdrawing his nominating petitions. Whereas Representative Garcia's Chief of Staff was the only Democrat who filed to run in the primary at the direction of Representative Garcia, undermining the process of a free and fair election. Whereas Representative Garcia's actions are beneath the dignity of his office and incompatible with the spirit of the Constitution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives disapproves of the behavior of the representative from Illinois, Mr. Garcia.
Under Rule 9, a resolution offered from the floor by a member other than the majority leader or the minority leader as a question of the privileges of the House has immediate precedence only at a time designated by the chair within 2 legislative days after the resolution is properly noticed. Pending that designation, the form of the resolution noticed by the gentlelady from Washington will appear in the record at this point. The chair will not at this point determine whether the resolution constitutes a question of privilege. That determination will be made at a time designated for consideration of the resolution. The House will be in order. Members are instructed to clear the well. The House will be in order and members will clear the well. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution, I'm sorry. Who did?
I think you recognize someone else. I'm not sure.
Oh.
Will the gentleman repeat his request at a microphone? Will the gentleman find a microphone and repeat his request?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask unanimous consent to address the body, the will.
I recognize for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank.
Recognized.
I'd like to thank the Honorable. Hello.
The House will be in order. The well will be cleared. All members will clear the well. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma seek recognition?
Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 873, I call up the bill H.R. 5371, the Continuing Appropriations, Agriculture, Legislative Branch, Military Construction, and Veterans Affairs and Extension Act 2026, with the Senate amendment thereto, and I have a motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the title of the bill, designate the Senate amendment, and designate the motion.
H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes. Senate amendment. Mr. Cole of Oklahoma moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 5371.
Pursuant to House Resolution 873, the motion shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole, and the gentlelady from Connecticut, Ms. DeLauro, each will control 30 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Oklahoma. The House will be in order. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the measure under consideration.
Without objection, so ordered. The House will be in order. All members are instructed to take their conversations outside. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. I rise today in support of the Continuing Appropriations, Agriculture, Legislative Branch, Military Construction, and Veterans Affairs and Extension Act of 2026. History reminds us, Mr. Speaker, that shutdowns never change the outcome. The only cost is paid by the American people. Over the last 43 days, the facts did not shift, the votes required did not shift, the path forward did not change. The only thing that did move was the level of pain Democrats inflicted on the nation. For 6 long weeks, Americans have paid the price for a shutdown they neither caused nor deserved. The pain has been all too real for far too many Americans, including families struggling without paychecks, seniors on the brink of hunger and food assistance lapsed, airports in chaos, the communities bracing as programs that they rely on were stalled or stopped altogether. And with yesterday being Veterans Day, we especially reflect on the impact of this shutdown on those who served our nation, past and present. Our military families were left wondering if they would be paid. Thanks to President Trump, they were. Yet this is not how the greatest nation in the world should function. Today, that changes. The legislation before us reopens the government, restores critical services, and puts an end to the needless hardship Democrats have inflicted on the country. This bill supports our troops. It pays federal workers. It fully funds SNAP benefits until September 30th of next year. It compensates our air traffic controllers right before a busy holiday season. In fact, it takes a holistic approach in ensuring federal services and programs are operational. In the simplest terms, we're putting the government back to work for our people. The bill is fundamentally the same responsible approach House Republicans offered on September 19th, but with an important addition: 3 full-year appropriations bills for FY26. These bipartisan, bicameral full-year appropriations bills cover the Military, Construction, and Veterans Affairs, Legislative Branch, and Agriculture, Rural Development, and Food and Drug Administration divisions. Once passed, we will have full-year funding in place for many of our most crucial programs. Military construction needs will be met for a full year, as will medical programs for our nation's veterans. The legislative branch will be properly resourced, including critical funding enhancements for the Capitol Police and for member security. And agriculture, food, and nutrition programs like WIC and SNAP will be fully funded to help vulnerable people in need. Importantly, this legislation delivers member-driven community project funding in both the military construction and agricultural division, which will direct resources back into the hands of the communities we represent. This was a top priority for the Appropriations Committee, and we achieved it while holding overall spending levels in check. It's responsible appropriations progress like this that causes me to reflect on an important message to our friends in the Democratic leadership. My sincere apologies to Minority Leaders Jeffries and Schumer, but after today, you will no longer get to hold the government hostage, and you will not get to force a rushed, pork-filled Christmas omnibus at the end of the year. Republicans have actively restored a responsible line-by-line process. Over the next few months, we will continue this work and efforts through regular order. This Article I advancement is an accomplishment that every member of this chamber can be proud of, regardless of party. Yet some still need to decide what they stand for today. So to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, do you want the leverage or do you want to legislate? Do you treat Americans as collateral damage or as constituents? And do you answer to your caucus or your country? For Republicans, the answer has been clear for the last 43 days. We have and we will continue to put Americans first. Democrats can join us. They have an opportunity to make the responsible choice to reopen our government and pass 3 official full-year appropriations bills. 8 Senate Democrats saw reason and did exactly that. I hope House Democrats do the same. True courage is taking responsible action for the nation, even when politics makes it inconvenient. Let's reopen the government and get back to work. With that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House is now in order. Thank you.
House will be in order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself 7 minutes.
The gentlelady is recognized.
I rise in opposition to this bill that does nothing, not one thing, to address the Republican health care crisis amid a cost of living crisis. More than 20 million Americans will have to pay double even triple their monthly insurance premiums in just a matter of weeks. And this bill leaves families without even a glimmer of hope that their costs might go down. Energy prices are up, grocery prices are up, housing costs are up. When 2/3 of American workers are living paycheck to paycheck, you can understand why the most important issue on their minds is affordability. What does President Trump say? And I quote, "Affordability is a con job," end quote. How out of touch can you be? Mr. President, start to listen to the American people, not your millionaire, billionaire friends. President Trump and my Republican colleagues refuse to address this issue. They continue to avoid it. They were so intent on avoiding it that they shut down the government instead of dealing with it. Speaker Johnson has indicated that he will not deal with it. He has shown no interest in holding a vote on extending the health care subsidies, which would prevent monthly costs from soaring. Republicans have tried to say they will deal with this problem their own way, but they have no plan. They are trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, as they have been trying to do unsuccessfully for 15 years. However, they are poised to succeed, which is why it is so important for this continuing resolution to fail. President Trump and Republicans, their plan is to drive up prices for everybody, compounding the cost of living crisis. More than 2 million Americans are expected to lose their health insurance next year because it has simply become too expensive. There are more than 50 pages of health care provisions in this bill. Not one of them stops costs from skyrocketing at the beginning of next year. Not one of them offers relief to American families being squeezed tighter and tighter by the Republican crisis. There is one group of people, however, who will receive some relief thanks to this bill. United States senators who may have participated in an insurrection, snuck into this bill at the 11th hour by Senate Republicans, is a provision to pay out at least $1 million each to 8 United States senators implicated in the January 6th insurrection. Understand, this is a corrupt precedent. This is where members can profit from their own votes. It's the fleecing of the American people, which they get and understand. At the same time, this bill excludes a provision that will order a plaque to be hung that honors the police officers who put their lives on the line to defend our democracy from that same insurrection. What a contrast. It is yet another instance of this administration's shameless corruption that is financially ruining American families. While there is $230 million for the president to pay himself from the Department of Justice, $8 million for some of his closest Senate allies, $200 million for a pair of private jets for the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, $40 billion to Argentina, the American people are left with nothing but higher costs. This bill also fails to fully cover the Toxic Exposure Fund, which was created to support veterans exposed to burn pits and Agent Orange. We made a promise to stand by the men and women who served our country in uniform. This bill does not live up to that promise. You know, Republicans need to stop taking photographs with veterans and then vote against their health care. Those who lead in the appropriations process here believe in the constitutional power of the purse. And over the past month, President Trump has been firing federal workers en masse. And when his administration has failed there, they have made life so miserable for federal workers that they had no choice but to leave. Federal workers should be, and I quote, traumatically affected. Those are the words of the Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought, an unelected bureaucrat. The federal workforce has dwindled by 200,000 since January, jeopardizing the public services that so many people rely on. Spare us your false concern. And since January, this administration has been stealing from our communities, withholding as much as $410 billion in funding approved by Democrats and Republicans, House, Senate, signed into law, and they are illegally blocking authorized funds from being distributed. Even now, as we debate this bill, the Trump administration is arguing to the Supreme Court that they should be allowed to withhold food stamp funding that Congress lawfully approved. They were ordered by 3 separate courts to distribute food assistance and are still fighting to withhold it. It is not connected to opening this government. They have the money. They have it now for food stamps. They just refuse to use it. Imagine using food as a political weapon, unspeakable and immoral. It seems like their only plan is to strip children of food assistance while kicking their parents off their health insurance. They have demonstrated that that is who they are. These are their true colors. You cannot expect Democrats to go along with any bipartisan funding deal if that agreement can be undone with a party line vote. Congress must assert its authority over the power of the purse. I encourage my colleagues to vote no, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to our distinguished majority leader, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank my friend, the Chairman of the Appropriations, Mr. Cole from Oklahoma, for not only yielding, but for bringing this important bill to the floor. Our appropriators worked tirelessly to negotiate a multi-bill package that is part of this bill to reopen the government. And we never should have been here, Mr. Speaker. We tried as Republicans over a month ago to prevent a government shutdown. We had a vote here on the House floor. 99% of Republicans voted to keep the government open, and 99% of Democrats voted to shut it down. And then that bill went over to the Senate, and we watched for 42 days where time and time again, Democrats, just to appease their most radical base, continued to vote in unison to shut the government down. And during that shutdown, we saw millions of families experience pain, Mr. Speaker, pain and suffering that Democrats themselves acknowledged that they imposed on the American people. But they said over and over again, we have quote after quote from Democrats during the shutdown, that they needed to impose the suffering to get leverage, Mr. Speaker, to use the American people as pawns to get leverage. For what? For what? They ultimately filed an alternative bill, $1.5 trillion mad spending spree that included things like $200 billion of taxpayer funding for illegals to get taxpayer benefits, while they gutted the $50 billion rural health care fund that we put in place in the Working Families Tax Cut. So, Mr. Speaker, anybody who comes up here and says they care about health care, they were also advocating to gut the $50 billion rural health care fund to provide $200 billion in taxpayer-funded health care benefits for illegals. It's insanity. And if you really want to look at where this all began, as some on the other side, Democrats, want to talk about a health care crisis, the health care law of the land is what many refer to as Obamacare. But let's remember the original name that Democrats gave that bill when they created it. They called it the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act. Only Democrats